There are places on earth where, once you step foot in them, you'll realize the depths of despair. Don't think that death is the only path to hell. You'll discover that hell isn't on the other side of death, but right here, between the cold walls and the world of broken souls. The footage you're watching is from 9 of the most notorious prisons on earth. The rules there are no longer human. From a Rwandan prison where inmates resort to cannibalism for survival, to the windowless concrete fortress of ADX Florence in the United States, people are locked in darkness 23 hours a day, left with only themselves and their ever-increasing madness. These places don't punish the body. They crush the soul, leaving those within far less than they were when they first entered. You never know how much you're alive until you face death. And in these places, people pray for death every day. Guarama Prison, Rwanda. Have you ever wondered what hell on earth would look like? Then Guarama in Rwanda is the most horrifying answer humanity has ever created. It's a place where human dignity is completely stripped away, where the line between human and animal blurs, where people struggle to survive day to day. Originally designed to hold approximately 3,000 people, this prison now holds over 8,000 souls in its suffocating confinement. Men, women, and even children are all trapped together, like nameless, living lumps of flesh. The air is filled with a putrid stench. Clean water and food are luxuries. And even the most basic need, sleep, becomes a struggle for survival, forcing countless inmates into open latrines filled with garbage. And when hunger finally reaches its limit, the unthinkable happens. Prisoners resorted to cannibalism to survive. The Rwandan government dismissed this as a slander, but insider accounts tell a different story. A tale of desperation and the most blatant human nature. Most of those held in Guarama were arrested after the infamous 1994 genocide, when over 800,000 people were killed in just 100 days, many without even a fair trial. Guilty or not, the harsh reality remains. 90% of them will never be released. Violence, fighting, and bullying are a daily occurrence. Fractures, bites, and serious injuries account for 38% of all medical treatments, and gangrenous limbs and fingers, severed from neglect, are a common sight. Guarama is more than just a prison. It's a stark reminder of the cruelty humans can inflict on one another. While the Rwandan government has attempted to rehabilitate some prisoners and improve their living conditions, the walls of Guarama remain a permanent prison, imprisoning not only their bodies, but also their souls. Bangkwang Central Prison, Thailand. People call this place the Big Tiger, a prison that devours anyone who enters. Located on the outskirts of Bangkok, Thailand, Bangkwang Central Prison holds the city's most vicious criminals. Murderers facing execution and those sentenced to life imprisonment are locked in this living hell. Completed in the early 1930s, it gained a reputation as one of the harshest prisons in the world. Even when released, prisoners are never the same. For the first 3 months of their incarceration, they are chained like slaves. Not only is their movement restricted, but their mental state deteriorates with each passing day. For death row inmates, these chains are permanently welded in place until their execution. Imagine walking around a prison every day wearing 2 33-pound chains. Fortunately, this brutal punishment was banned for both death row and general inmates in 2013. Inside this prison, inmates are classified according to a system called CHIT. Food is scarce and often malnourished, with many surviving on just 1 bowl of rice and a bowl of vegetables per meal. Those who want better food are always required to pay a large sum of money. While poorer inmates are forced to survive on this meager fare, wealthier inmates can afford better food. For this reason, Poorer inmates sometimes work for wealthier inmates to earn money to buy better food. Alan John Davis has been imprisoned in this prison for 17 years. A British citizen from Blackpool, England, Davis was one of the first foreigners to be imprisoned in Bong Kwang prison. He was first arrested in 1990 while living and running a business in Thailand. According to police reports, Davis was accused of drug trafficking, but he claimed he was falsely accused. After a lengthy trial, the businessman was sentenced to death and shackled like other death row inmates. He said many others sentenced to the same sentence died before their executions. Prisoners could be dragged out of their cells the next moment, machine-gunned, and executed. In some cases, 24 prisoners were crammed into a cell measuring only 26 square meters. Not only were the cells crammed, but the conditions were extremely dirty and unsanitary. Davis described a wound on his leg that had become infected by tap water and swelled to twice its size. It got so bad that his leg nearly had to be amputated before finally healing. To this day, the bladder remains a nightmare-like space. Russia, Black Dolphin Prison. Have you ever imagined a place where death is the only escape? In frozen Russia, such a hell exists. The Black Dolphin Prison. The phrase, "get out of here in a body bag," isn't metaphor. It's the stark truth. Officially, it's the 6th prison in Sol-Iletsk, near the Kazakhstan border, but it's rarely called that. A black dolphin sculpture, carved by inmates, stands at the entrance, offering an eerie welcome to those who enter, and almost no one ever leaves. Over 700 inmates are held here, and they're not petty thieves or common swindlers. The Russian government sends human scum here. They were responsible for the deaths of over 3,500 people, including serial killers, terrorists, and cannibals. On average, they claimed 5 lives for each inmate. Unlike other prisons aimed at reform, Black Dolphin Prison existed for one purpose: punishment. Each inmate was locked behind 3 iron doors, like a cell within a cell. 2 inmates were crammed together in a space of barely 50 square feet, about 4.5 square meters, so cramped that stretching out was difficult. Exercise time inside the iron cage was limited to 90 minutes a day, and guards searched their entire bodies for contraband. For 16 hours a day, inmates were not allowed to sit or lie down, and guards crossed some every 15 minutes to search them. The prisoners' movements were a form of mental torture, blindfolded, forced to bend over, and handcuffed high. They were unable to see their surroundings or plan escapes. At Black Dolphin, they were fed 4 times a day, watery soup and bread, alone in their cells, without a cafeteria, playground, or any contact. Week after week, month after month, many prisoners go without seeing anyone else. A few inmates are allowed to read books or listen to the radio, as if to remind themselves that they are still human. Among the notorious inmates held here are Nikola Asanov, who murdered his entire family and burned their bodies in the forest, and Vladimir Nikolov, a cannibal who murdered his rivals while drunk. For their unforgivable crimes, the guards called them worse than beasts, a term used to justify their brutal treatment. Black Dolphin is more than just a prison. It's a place where hope is crushed daily, where time ceases to flow and stands still like an eternal punishment. While it's considered one of the harshest prisons in the world, there's another place in Africa that takes the concept of hell to a whole new level. Before we continue, I have a small request. If you enjoyed this content, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Over 80% of people watch our videos without subscribing. Subscribing is free, but it helps us a lot. So please hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for subscribing. Now, let's move on to the next content. San Quentin, California. Have you ever wondered what would happen to people if they were deprived of space, freedom, and hope for decades, even a lifetime? The answer lies in San Quentin, America's oldest and most feared prison. Since 1854, it has held some of history's most heinous criminals. Perched on precious land overlooking San Francisco Bay, San Quentin has served time for infamous murderers like Charles Manson and Scott Peterson, and is the only facility in California with an execution chamber. But don't expect spacious cells like in the movies. Homes here are the size of closets, measuring about 11 by 4 feet, 3.2 meters by 1.2 meters. It's barely big enough for a worn-out bunk bed, a covered steel toilet, and a cold sink. 2 people have to live in that space together, and turning around without bumping into the walls is a skill. Designed to hold 3,084 inmates, San Quentin had forced over 4,000 into its cells before 2020, turning them into a hive of chaos where people were mere numbers. Trapped within its 4 narrow walls for hours a day, many began to break down internally. Claustrophobia, depression, and panic attacks were constant companions. But the hell didn't end there. The death row population that once held San Quentin was now just 21, divided into 3 sections. The isolated North Wing for the good guys, the North Wing on the 4th floor, once the original detention area, and the East Wing, a rotting labyrinth where the most brutal were held. Violence was the rhythm of daily life. Inmates hurled trash at each other and the guards, fights erupted over a casual glance, and blood was common on the cold cement floors. But what makes this place particularly horrifying isn't just the violence, but the deeply ingrained racism that seems like an unwritten code. Racial boundaries are pervasive everywhere, in showers, bathrooms, living spaces. Black people can't invade white territory, and vice versa. Those who cross the line are taught violence. There's no sharing food, no haircuts, no cross-border communication. This place is all about racism. Inmate Lee Haggerty said it wasn't an exaggeration. Even the gymnasium has been transformed into a makeshift cell, with bunk beds piled high and the smell of human life lingering. The concept of rehabilitation, which once evoked this prison, is now a distant memory. No one dreams of freedom at San Quentin anymore. They simply learn to survive in a world where sunlight, justice, and kindness are confined behind cold stone walls. And for many here, those walls will be the last they see before they close their eyes. Alcatraz of the Rockies, ADX Florence, Colorado. Located in Fremont County, Florence is a notorious prison for its brutality. Officially known as ADX Florence, Alcatraz of the Rockies is a remote Colorado prison built to house America's most dangerous criminals. Currently, only about 344 inmates are serving time at ADX Florence, but most were once on the FBI's most wanted list. Among them is El Chapo Guzman, considered one of the greatest drug lords in history. After escaping from 2 maximum security prisons in Mexico, El Chapo was eventually captured and extradited to the United States, where he could no longer dig tunnels or bribe his way out of prison. There's also Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, who mailed bombs to several prominent Americans between 1978 and 1995. Inside ADX, there's Zacarias Moussaoui, the Al-Qaeda genius who played a key role in the 9/11 attacks. Other notable cases include Eric Rudolph, the Atlanta Olympic bomber, Ramzi Youssef, the 1993 World Trade Center bomber, and Michael Swango, the doctor who poisoned and murdered approximately 60 patients. As you know, inmates aren't sent here for petty crimes. Being incarcerated at ADX means you're a repeat offender, a gang leader, a cop killer, a serial killer, or even a psychopath who poses a danger to themselves and others. Most of the inmates here suffer from serious mental illness. For the safety of both the inmates and the guards, many spend approximately 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. The conditions are so harsh that the United Nations has classified this treatment as torture. While other correctional facilities use solitary confinement to curb bad behavior, it's a reality at ADX. These inmates aren't just isolated from other inmates for hours or days, they're also forced to remain there for months or even years. ADX cells are typically about 7 feet by 12 feet, approximately 2.1 meters by 3.6 meters. Inmates are surrounded by concrete walls every day. There's no sense of community here. There's no cafeteria, so inmates receive their food through a hole in their cell door. Their only view of the world is a small window facing the empty sky. It's a sad life, but many people at ADX deserve to be there. Because of the prison's layout, inmates are unaware of its layout. Therefore, no one can plan an escape route or plan an escape. Since ADX first opened in 1995, not a single inmate has escaped from here. This is due to the strict measures taken to ensure inmates have no access to weapons. Anything that could harm others is prohibited here. The interior of the cells is made of solid concrete, making them immovable. Concrete desks, chairs, and beds are concrete slabs covered with thin foam mattresses. ADX cells have a combined toilet and sink. Showers are turned on automatically only 3 times a week. Inmates who demonstrate good behavior are eligible for a small black and white television with a built-in radio. They also have access to books and magazines from the prison library. Most inmates are allowed 15-minute phone calls per month with close family members. Visitations are allowed 5 times a month, under very strict conditions. These inmates are only allowed 1 hour of exercise each day. Handcuffed and shackled, they are taken to an empty cell or an outside yard, where they are locked in cages until their exercise session ends. However, not all areas of ADX are this harsh. In fact, the prison has 6 security levels. The better an inmate's behavior, the lighter their punishment. In some cases, inmates have been transferred from high-security prisons to less restrictive facilities. But even for those who escape the horrors of solitary confinement, the psychological after-effects remain for a lifetime.